Lipids are one class of biological molecules that do not include true polymers, and they are generally not big enough to be considered macromolecules. Lipids include a diverse group of compounds that are largely nonpolar in nature. Lipids are grouped together because they share one important trait. They mix poorly with water and are characterized by their insolubility in water. The insolubility is often referred to as hydrophobic, which literally means water-fearing. The hydrophobic behavior of lipids is based on their molecular structure. Although they may have some polar bonds associated with oxygen, lipids consist mostly of hydrocarbon regions. This is because they include mostly nonpolar carbon to carbon or carbon to hydrogen bonds. Nonpolar molecules are hydrophobic or insoluble in water. Lipids are varied in form and perform many different functions in living organisms. Cells of living organisms store energy for long-term use in the form of fats. Lipids are also the building blocks of many hormones and are an important component of all cellular membranes. Lipids also provide insulation from the environment for plants and animals. They control the body's internal climate, maintaining a constant temperature. Lipids help keep aquatic birds and mammals dry when forming a protective layer over fur or feathers because of their water-repellent hydrophobic nature. Did you know that up to 30% of body weight is fat tissue? Some of these is made up of visceral fat or adipose tissue surrounding delicate organs. Vital organs such as the heart, kidneys, and liver are protected by visceral fat. The composition of the brain is outstandingly 60% fat, demonstrating the major structural role that fat serves within the body. You may be most familiar with fat underneath the skin. This blanket layer of tissue insulates the body from extreme temperatures and helps keep the internal climate under control. Those who do not have enough fat in their bodies tend to feel cold sooner, are often fatigued, and have pressure sores on their skin from fatty acid deficiency. Lipids include fats, oils, waxes, phospholipids, and steroids. Fats are a stored form of energy and are also known as triglycerides. Phospholipids make up the matrix of membranes. Steroids are another class of lipids, including cholesterol and some human hormones, each with a unique function. Wax covers the feathers of some aquatic birds and the leaf surfaces of some plants. Because of the hydrophobic nature of waxes, they prevent water from sticking on the surface. Triglycerides are the largest class of lipids and function primarily as long-term energy storage molecules. They are very rich in energy, containing double the energy of either carbohydrates or proteins that can also be used to supply energy to the body. As a normal component of the vascular system, triglycerides are continually in circulation, ready to be metabolized to provide a source of energy. In general, our body stores lipids in the form of triglycerides. The excess energy from the food we eat is digested and incorporated into adipose tissue. Most of the energy required by the human body is provided by carbohydrates and lipids. As it is well known, glucose is stored in the body as glycogen. While glycogen provides a ready source of energy, lipids primarily function as an energy reserve. Glycogen is quite bulky with heavy water content, thus the body cannot store too much for long. Alternatively, fats are packed together tightly without water and store far greater amount of energy in a reduced space. It's the glycerol component of the triglyceride that is the most useful to the body in providing a source of energy, as it is easily converted into glucose, which can be used to supply the brain with energy. From a chemical perspective, lipids are generally more fully reduced. The stored energy is between carbon to carbon and carbon to hydrogen bonds. Under normal oxidative processes, these bonds are broken in the presence of oxygen to yield carbon dioxide, water, and a release of energy. In general, the more oxygens you see in the chemical structure, the less energy one would expect to get oxidatively. As a result, more electrons are liberated when fats burn than when sugars burn. This makes fats a better source of energy. A fat gram is densely concentrated with energy. It contains more than double the amount of energy than a gram of carbohydrate. Unlike other body cells that can store fat in limited supplies, fat cells are specialized for fat storage and are able to expend almost indefinitely in size. The major function of fats is, of course, energy storage. The hydrocarbon chains of fats are similar to gasoline molecules and just as rich in energy. A gram of fat stores more than twice as much energy as a gram of a polysaccharide, such as starch. Because plants are relatively immobile, they can function with bulky energy storage in the form of starch. Animals, however, must carry their energy stores with them, so there is an advantage to having a more compact reservoir of fuel fat. Although fats are not polymers, they are large molecules assembled from a few smaller molecules by dehydration reactions. A fat is constructed from two kinds of smaller molecules, glycerol and fatty acids. Glycerol is an alcohol with 3 carbons, each bearing a hydroxyl group. Fatty acids have a long chain of hydrocarbons to which a carboxyl group is attached. The carbon at one end of the fatty acid is a part of a carboxyl group, the functional group that gives these molecules the name fatty acid. Attached to the carboxyl group is a long hydrocarbon chain. The number of carbons in the fatty acid may range from 4 to 36. The most common are those containing 12 to 18 carbons. The relatively nonpolar carbon to hydrogen bonds in the hydrocarbon chains of fatty acids are the reason fats are hydrophobic. Fats separate from water because the water molecules hydrogen bond to one another and exclude the fats. This is the reason that vegetable oil separates from the aqueous vinegar solution in a bottle of salad dressing. In making a fat, 3 fatty acid molecules each join to glycerol by an ester linkage bond between a hydroxyl group and a carboxyl group. The resulting fat, also called a triglycerol, thus consists of 3 fatty acids linked to one glycerol molecule. The fatty acids in fat can be same or they can be of 2 or 3 different kinds. Fatty acids vary in length and in the number and location of the double bonds. The terms saturated fats and unsaturated fats are commonly used in the context of nutrition. These terms refer to the structure of the hydrocarbon chains of the fatty acids. In a fatty acid chain, if there are only single bonds between neighboring carbons in the hydrocarbon chain, the fatty acid is said to be saturated. If there are no double bonds between carbon atom composing the chain, then as many hydrogen atoms as possible are bonded to the carbon skeleton. Saturated fatty acids are saturated with hydrogen. In other words, the number of hydrogen atoms attached to the carbon skeleton is maximized. A fat made from saturated fatty acid is called saturated fat. Most animal fats are saturated. The hydrocarbon chains of their fatty acid lack double bonds, and their flexibility allows the fat molecules to pack together tightly. Saturated animal fats such as butter are solid at room temperature. Animal fats with stearic acid and palmitic acid, which are common in meat, and fat with butyric acid, which is common in butter, are examples of saturated fats. Mammals store fats in specialized cells called adipocytes, where globules of fat occupy most of the cell's volume. An unsaturated fatty acid has one or more double bonds formed by the removal of hydrogen atoms from the carbon skeleton. Oleic acid is an example of an unsaturated fatty acid. The fatty acid will have a kink in its hydrocarbon chain wherever a double bond occurs. In contrast, the fats of plants and fishes are generally unsaturated, meaning that they are built of one or more types of unsaturated fatty acid, usually liquid at room temperature. Plant and fish fats are referred to as oils. Olive oil and cod liver oil are examples. The kinks where the double bonds are located prevent the molecules from packing together closely enough to solidify at room temperature. In plants, oil is stored in many seeds and is used as a source of energy during seedling development. Cis and trans indicate the configuration of the molecule around the double bond. If hydrogens are present in the same plane, it is referred as a cis fat. If the hydrogen atoms are on 2 different planes, it is referred to as a trans fat. The cis double bond causes a bend or a kink that prevents the fatty acid from packing tightly, keeping them liquid at room temperature. Olive oil, corn oil, canola oil, and cod liver oil are examples of unsaturated fats. Unsaturated fats help to lower blood cholesterol levels, whereas saturated fats contribute to plaque formation in the arteries. In the food industry, oils are artificially hydrogenated to make them semi-solid and of a consistency desirable for many processed food products. Since the process of hydrogenation adds hydrogen atoms to oil, it will reduce the number of unsaturated fatty acids and increase the number of saturated fatty acids in the oil. Consumption of a high level of saturated fatty acids is associated with increasing the level of cholesterol in the blood, and this may lead to coronary heart disease. Peanut butter and margarine are hydrogenated to prevent lipids from separating out in the liquid form. Unsaturated fatty acids may be converted to saturated fatty acids by the relatively simple hydrogenation reaction. Simply speaking, hydrogen gas is bubbled through oils to solidify them. During this hydrogenation process, double bonds of the cis conformation in the hydrocarbon chain may be converted to double bonds in the trans conformation. Like carbohydrates, fats have received a lot of bad publicity. It is true that eating an excess of fried foods and other fatty foods leads to weight gain. However, fats do have important functions. There are some fatty acids that the body cannot synthesize, and these are called essential fatty acids. It is important to note that non-essential fatty acids don't mean unimportant. The classification is based solely on the ability of the body to synthesize the fatty acid. Essential fatty acids must be obtained from food. They fall into two categories, omega-3 and omega-6. Omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids are precursors to important compounds which are powerful hormones that control many other hormones and important functions in the central nervous system and the immune system. Those hormones obtained from omega-6 fatty acids are known to increase blood pressure, immune response, and inflammation. In contrast, hormones derived from omega-3 fatty acids are known to have heart healthy effects. Given the contrasting effects of the omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, a proper dietary balance between the two must be achieved to ensure optimal health benefits. Salmon, trout, and tuna are good sources of omega-3 fatty acids. Research indicates that omega-3 fatty acids reduce the risk of sudden death from heart attacks, reduce triglycerides in the blood, lower blood pressure, and prevent thrombosis by inhibiting blood clotting. Thanks for watching.